Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about the parts of sentences. So the three that we're going to focus on today would be subject, verb, and object. We're not going to talk about complements, just because we're going to focus on the more entry-level material here. And also remember that to have a full sentence, you need to have a subject and a verb and a complete thought. So in the English language, there are a few sentence patterns that are very common, and this can help you when you're trying to identify where a subject is, where a verb might be in a sentence. So remember to try to keep this in mind. So one of the most common would be the subject, verb, object, or SVO pattern. You can also just have the subject, verb. You don't even need to have an object to have a complete sentence. So for example, if you think about it when you're getting married, some people say, do you take this person to be your lawfully wedded, blah, blah, blah. Some people say, I do, which is the subject and the verb, period. Or I will, subject and the verb, period. And that is a complete sentence. Very short, but still complete. And then you can also have patterns like a subject, verb, direct object, or a subject, verb, indirect object, direct object, etc., etc. Now remember, the subjects are the names of who or what the sentence is about. So it can be one of three things. It can be a noun, it can be a pronoun, or a noun phrase. So for example, a proper noun, Bob or Jessica, someone's legal name. It can be a pronoun like I, you, he, it. Or the tougher one for some people is to think about a noun phrase. So it is a bunch of words that has the noun that would be the simple subject of the sentence, but there are other words that help create that idea. So for example, the nursing class has three words. That would be the complete subject in a noun phrase. And what you're actually talking about is a class, right? So what type of class is it? So the noun here is class, and the other words are not, necessarily essential when you're thinking about, okay, I have to have a subject, the simple subject, class here. But we include extra words like the nursing class to be specific. Because if I walked into a college, for example, and I said, where's the class? Their first question would be, what class, right? So if you can narrow it down, you need to use those specifics. So oftentimes we put adjectives with nouns to try to help specify what we're talking about. The next one, the devastating effects of famine. Lots of words there, but if you step back and say, okay, what are we actually talking about? We're talking about the effects of something. In this case, they're devastating, and they're from a famine, but we're actually talking about the effects. So that is the simple subject that's part of that complete subject or noun phrase. And then a short example at the bottom, student tutors. So what kind of tutors are they? They're student tutors. Again, you don't technically need students there. You could just say the tutors, blah, blah, blah. But again, it helps us to be more specific if you can add an adjective and say the student tutors. It helps us narrow it down and understand what everybody is talking about. All right, so a verb is a word expressing action. So you can think of like running, hopping, thinking, or a state of being. So is, am, become, etc. There are different kinds of verbs that act in different ways. So you have main verbs, helping verbs, linking verbs, transitive verbs, intransitive verbs. Bottom line is sentences can have multiple verbs. The ones that do the heavy lifting are the main verbs of the sentence. That is what you need to have a complete sentence, a main verb, that indicates what the subject of the sentence is doing. And again, you can have multiple main verbs just to make things interesting. So for example, I can say, I walked my dog and ate ice cream yesterday. So what did I do? I walked and I ate. So I have two main verbs applying to me, the subject of that sentence. So when you're identifying the main verb of the sentence, you can try to remember that sentence pattern clue. It's not 100% effective, but usually the subject of the sentence comes first, and fairly close behind it will come the verb, the main verb of that sentence. Another way that you can look for main verbs in sentences is to do the tense test, where you change the tense of the sentence, and whatever word changes form is the word that would be the main verb. So to give you an example, if I say, I am walking my dog, you'll notice that there's a couple of verbs there, am and walking. And you might be like, okay, well, which is the main verb? We've got two. How do I figure this out? You can change the tense of the sentence to try to figure it out. So I am walking my dog can change to I walked my dog, can change to I will walk my dog, or I walk my dog every Tuesday. So you can see that the word that is changing in each of those sentences is the verb walk. Walking, walked, walk, walks, if I had a third person pronoun, etc. So that's a little test you can do to try to figure out what's the main verb of the sentence. You also have objects, which are not 100% necessary to complete a sentence, but they again help us bring in more information. So they do serve an important purpose, even though we can speak in full sentences without them. So it is a noun or a pronoun in the sentence that is being acted upon. So remember, if it's the subject, that person is doing the action. The object is the one being acted upon. So this example here, I walk my dog. I am the subject. Walk is the verb. Dog is the object. I am acting upon the dog. I am walking him. He's not walking me, right? There are two main types of objects that you want to be aware of usually when you're looking at grammar, and that would be, is it a direct object or indirect object? The direct object is being acted upon, and an indirect object is the recipient of a direct object. I know, it can get really confusing, so I color-coded this here. So the example sentence, Joanne passed her father the parcel. Joanne is the subject, so we're going to ignore her for a second. Her father is in the sentence, so he's an object because she's acting upon him in some way. And then a parcel is always also part of the sentence here, so that is another object. So you've got two objects there, and to figure out which one is the direct object, which one is the indirect object, you want to figure out which one Joanne is actively acting upon. So what is she actually passing? She's passing the parcel. So the parcel is the direct object. Who is she passing it to? She's passing it to her father, who would be the indirect object of the sentence. Another example, Christopher gave his friend a dirty look. The direct object of the sentence would be the dirty look. That's what Christopher is giving. And who's receiving that dirty look? That's the indirect object. That would be his friend.